From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. And in Washington, Eric Severide, Marvin Kalb, Bob Schieffer, Roger Mudd, Bob Simon on the road to Swan Lock, South Vietnam, Bruce Dunning in Hong Kong, Randy Daniels in Detroit, and Lee Thornton in New York.
Good evening. The 5-year-old war that has ravaged Cambodia is virtually over. Faced with inevitable defeat, Cambodia's battered government today offered to surrender and transfer all power to the Khmer Rouge insurgents. The offer was made through the International Red Cross to the insurgents' titular leader, Cambodian Prince Sihanouk in Peking. But Sihanouk's rejected the surrender offer, as well as a ceasefire request, and suggested instead that the government leaders flee or face hanging by the rebels. The government's decision to surrender came as the Khmer Rouge entered Phnom Penh in force for the first time. The insurgents took complete control of the airport, then advanced on the capital from all sides. Government troops fell back into Phnom Penh, leaving behind their weapons. They did not blow the Basak River Bridge, whose northern end is just a half-mile from the presidential palace, and the insurgents marched across it into the southern section of the city. Marvin Kalb has a background report now from Washington.
These anti-communist Cambodians, outgunned and outmaneuvered, are now fighting their last battle against the Khmer Rouge. American officials say it's only a matter of hours before the communist-led rebels win a complete military victory over government forces. The Khmer Rouge apparently disdainful of any offer to work out a negotiated surrender. Experts say Prince Sihanouk may return to Phnom Penh from his exile in Peking, but only briefly, only to celebrate a communist victory. Real power rests with a cadre of Cambodians, Khieu Samphan, Ieng Sary, and Salath Sar, all fiercely nationalistic, with bitter anti-American memories of the U.S. invasion of May 1970 that former President Nixon called an incursion, and the U.S. bombing that continued until August 1973. But the incursion and the bombing, far from wiping out communist sanctuaries, led instead to a communist triumph. This is a severe setback for American policy, and no official is denying it. Nevertheless, President Ford and Secretary Kissinger have been trying to counter a wave of depression throughout the U.S. government. Yesterday, they summoned top officials from every branch of the bureaucracy to the White House for what amounted to a pep talk. The President and Kissinger insisting that Indochina is not the whole world and promising to work with Congress on an active policy towards Russia, China, Europe, and especially the Middle East. Marvin Kalb, CBS News, Washington.
Today, in an appearance before the American Society of Newspaper Editors, the president spoke of Cambodia and Vietnam, as Bob Schieffer reports.
Answering questions from a panel of newspapermen, the president said he had learned of the Cambodian developments only a few minutes earlier. He appeared pessimistic that Sihanouk could be of any help.
It's my recollection from a quick look at that information that was given to me at the luncheon table that Prince Sihanouk is in no position to really achieve or accomplish the results that we all want, namely a negotiated settlement in that unfortunate situation.
On Vietnam, the president said he was absolutely convinced the situation would stabilize if Congress approves the administration request for more military aid. He blamed the current situation on broken American promises.
I don't think we can blame the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China. In this case, if we had done with our ally what we promised, I think this whole tragedy could have been eliminated. For just a relatively small additional commitment in economic and military aid, relatively small compared to the $150 billion that we spent, that at the last minute of the last quarter, we don't make that special effort, and now we're faced with this human tragedy that it just makes me sick every day I hear about it, read about it, and see it.
Although the president has said many times in recent weeks he would not engage in recriminations, his remarks today left no doubt that he believes what has happened in Vietnam is the fault of the United States. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, the White House.
On Capitol Hill, the administration continued to make its case for the president's billion-dollar Vietnam aid package, but Congress itself continued to focus on the evacuation of Americans from Saigon. Roger Mudd has the story.
Democratic members of the Foreign Relations Committee of the Senate angrily charged tonight the Ford administration has been giving out false figures on the evacuation of Americans from Saigon. Democrat Dick Clark of Iowa said Ambassador Graham Martin was dragging his feet on the evacuation. The implication of Clark's charge is, of course, that the administration is trying to hold American civilians in Saigon hostage until the Congress approves the $722 million in military aid President Ford requested. The committee had been expected to give its final approval this evening to a $200 million contingency fund for humanitarian aid to South Vietnam, but the members were told that the White House had rejected that as inadequate. So the committee adjourned until tomorrow without taking any action at all this evening. Committee Chairman John Sparkman said the committee had not yet received the information it had requested on the evacuation, and that the administration's failure to provide that information was certainly material to the committee's refusal to act. One member of the committee said this evening this is turning into an elaborate shell game. Roger Mudd, CBS News, Washington.
Hey, Linda, what you doing for breakfast?
I'm watching my weight and nutrition.
Good for you.
I'm having a bowl of high-protein Kellogg's Special K.
Good for you.
A teaspoon of sugar, 4 ounces of skim milk.
Good for you.
Orange juice.
Good for you.
And coffee. That's my Special K breakfast with protein, vitamins, and iron. A delicious breakfast for less than 240 calories.
The Special K breakfast is serious nutrition for weight-conscious adults.
Good for you, Linda Chase.
Good for me.
Michelin. Dear Michelin, back in '67, I decided to give your steel-belted radials a try. I was amazed at the difference. Since then, I've had 5 sets of Michelins on various cars and never replaced tires before trading cars.
Ever since we invented the steel-belted radial, Americans have been sold on Michelin. Prove it to yourself. Mr. Lochner did. Michelin, the steel-belted radial leader.
We made it first. We make it last.
In South Vietnam today, fierce hand-to-hand fighting was reported 160 miles northeast of Saigon. That's in the port city of Phan Rang. Communists earlier this month had overrun that city, but it was later recaptured by government forces. Now it's fallen again to the North Vietnamese. The communists also kept up the pressure on Xuan Loc, 40 miles east of Saigon, pouring barrages of artillery shells on both sides of the city and threatening to cut Highway 1. 10 miles west of Xuan Loc, toward Saigon, North Vietnamese captured the crossroads town of Dao Ge, and closer to Saigon continued their heavy shelling of the Bien Hoa Air Base. They shut it down for 6 hours. The communists also overran a 2,000-man South Vietnamese regiment at Gia Kim, 8 miles northwest of Xuan Loc, sending the government soldiers fleeing. Bob Simon reports on that battle.
The North Vietnamese did not grant these men a safe retreat. They shelled the road, mostly with captured 105mm howitzers. They made it almost impossible to evacuate the wounded and the dead. If the North Vietnamese succeed in cutting Route 1, which is evidently what they're trying to do, they will have trapped an entire infantry division and closed the circle around Xuan Loc, the city which is being increasingly referred to as Dien Bien Phu, 1975. Meanwhile, along Route 1, it was a quiet morning. Government troops rode back and forth near their last outpost 5 miles from Xuan Loc, seemingly oblivious to what was going on just around the corner. But at 1 in the afternoon, suddenly, it was quiet no longer. The North Vietnamese opened up with 130mm artillery fire. Government soldiers at an armored cavalry position ran to their tanks. Their armored cars began to pull out. The position had only been set up yesterday to provide covering fire to the troops defending Xuan Loc. It will be there no longer. Within minutes, Route 1 became like the road from Quang Tri to Hue, from Hue to Da Nang, from Da Nang to Quy Nhon, a river of soldiers and refugees heading towards safety. Most of the civilians had been moving for days, but no matter how fast they ran, the war ran faster. So it's another retreat, strategic perhaps, but still a retreat. The North Vietnamese are getting closer. Bob Simon, CBS News, on the road to Xuan Loc.
South of Saigon in the Mekong Delta area, sharp clashes between government and communist forces also were reported. Bruce Dunning narrates this film of some of that fighting.
4 days ago, the South Vietnamese 7th Division proudly took newsmen on a tour of this region 25 to 30 miles south of Saigon, just off Highway 4. The division was proud because it had driven a North Vietnamese attack force out of this area. But now the North Vietnamese are back, and this same battleground must be fought over again. As the armored vehicles move out across the rice fields, mortar rounds suddenly begin to explode around them. The armored troop transports break formation and scatter in desperate attempts to get away. The North Vietnamese are trying to surround the nearby provincial capital of Ta Nan and cut Highway 4 to isolate Saigon from the Mekong Delta. The North Vietnamese have again started shelling the town of Tut Tua, driving people to flee. A few handfuls of belongings, all they could carry away. The shelling leaves several wounded, and it killed this woman's son. She weeps inconsolably, but she too must leave because of the shelling. Some leave on sampans down the rivers and canals of the Delta, while the soldiers dig in and wait for another attack, which is certain to come. Bruce Dunning, CBS News, Hong Kong.
U.S. immigration officials say that the first group of Cambodian children flown to the United States may be children without a country because they lack the proper immigration papers necessary for adoption. They arrived at Dulles International Airport in Virginia at the beginning of this week, and Bernard Shaw has the story.
This Leesburg, Virginia church has served as shelter for 26 Cambodian children since they arrived Monday. Their ages range from infancy to 13 years. And according to published reports, they were rounded up by so-called adoption agents in Cambodia. The U.S. Immigration Department today said most of the children say they are not orphans. Some were told by their parents that they were coming to the United States to study English. While officials worked on their legal status, the children were moved to temporary foster homes.
We want to be careful that the families that are chosen for them will be families that are sensitive to their culture and are sensitive to their needs.
Can these children be legally adopted now?
Yes.
What about the question of the parents signing over papers?
The children have been abandoned. Abandonment is the legal means for adoption.
The Immigration Department doesn't plan to send the children back, but their status for adoption is clouded because most have parents. One official said they're in limbo. Bernard Shaw, CBS News, Leesburg, Virginia.
Alexander Shelepin, the hard-line former chief of the Soviet secret police, was ousted today as a member of the ruling Politburo. Richard Roth, our Moscow correspondent, says the ouster, described officially as a resignation, indicates that Soviet Party leader Brezhnev is firmly in control of the government after persistent rumors to the contrary. Shelepin, at 56, had been the youngest member of the Soviet policy-making body and was an ardent opponent of détente with the West, which put him in direct conflict with Brezhnev. On Taiwan today, the body of nationalist Chinese leader Chiang Kai-shek was laid to rest. More than 2,000 persons, including an American delegation led by Vice President Rockefeller, attended the services, and 2 million lined the funeral route. The body of Chiang was placed in what was called a temporary mausoleum because the 87-year-old Chiang had asked to be buried in mainland China. It could be some time before the communists agree to that. Battling Palestinian guerrillas and militant right-wing Lebanese agreed today to end their 4 days of street fighting in Beirut, but some scattered shooting and rocket explosions continued into the night, hours after the ceasefire agreement. More than 125 persons have been killed since that fighting began Sunday. In Portugal, the left-wing military government has nationalized most major industries, including steel, electric power, petroleum and chemical products, and air, rail, and shipping companies. Also announced were land reform and employment programs and a price freeze on basic foods. The Pentagon has denied charges that American convict volunteers were killed in a World War II poison gas experiment off the Australian coast. The Pentagon said experiments of the type alleged are completely contrary to American policy then and now.
Whole grain wheat, hard red spring wheat, whole grain rye. Whole grain means that the wheat germ and rye germ are still there. This is bran, this defatted flaxseed, and this is pure golden honey. Now, all of these ingredients are in Roman meal bread. Roman meal, the good-tasting light brown bread with natural whole grain goodness. The Roman Meal Company thought you'd like to know.
When your family's having steak, you want to make every bite count. That's why we use A1 steak sauce. A1 brings out all the deep down juicy goodness of every single bite of steak or even hamburger. Delicious. For me, there's only one steak sauce, A1, because A1 has the taste that makes every bite count.
The nation's cities are in terrible financial shape, not the least of them Detroit. It already has one of the nation's highest unemployment rates because of auto industry layoffs, and now it's likely to see that jobless rate climb even higher due to city budget cuts. Randy Daniels reports.
Detroit Mayor Coleman Young is a man with problems. Nearly 25% of his city's workforce is unemployed, and with his presentation of Detroit's 1975 operating budget came more bad news. The city faces a $23 million deficit for fiscal 1975, but the Detroit City Charter mandates a balanced budget this year. Consequently, 1,500 municipal employees, most of them policemen and firemen, must be laid off indefinitely.
No city in America has been harder hit than Detroit by the economic crash that is still considered a recession in other parts of our country. By almost any measure, Detroit is now in a depression.
Detroit is making other economy moves, trimming department budgets and asking municipal unions to forego negotiated pay raises. But there is vocal resistance, primarily from policemen who want their promised raise and say the city cannot afford fewer patrolmen.
Detroit has a high unemployment rate, and the crime rate is skyrocketing. And I think in the warmer months ahead, with the sub-pay running out, that the crime rate is going to go completely out of sight. And they can't afford to have less policemen on the street. They need more policemen on the street.
These layoffs represent the latest in a series of economic setbacks for Detroit. City officials are optimistic about the future, but see state and federal help as the only solution to their current financial problems. Randy Daniels, CBS News, Detroit.
The Supreme Court has ruled that states may grant individual exemptions from air pollution controls so long as the overall state plan meets clean air standards. The 7-1 decision said the state is at liberty to adopt whatever mix of emission limitations it deems best suited to its particular situation. Both sides made closing arguments today in the bribery trial of former Treasury Secretary John Connally, and the case is expected to go to the jury in Washington tomorrow. The Securities and Exchange Commission filed a civil suit in Washington today accusing the Northrop Corporation, that's the aerospace firm, of having a $30 million political slush fund. The SEC charges that some of this money, about $500,000, was laundered through a French firm and then funneled back into the United States political campaigns. The SEC said that Northrop is expected to file a consent agreement tomorrow, saying it would not use such a fund in the future. President Ford today invoked emergency action to stall for 60 days. A strike threatened to begin Friday against the nation's railroads. The union involved is the Brotherhood of Railway and Airline Clerks.
Oh, you can buy paint anywhere. Paint, you know, what's paint? You got to get something that's good, that is what you want, that speaks for you.
Here's a real housewife, Peggy Hairston, talking about Glidden spread satin.
I want Glidden because then that's me. I can express myself through that. So I get Glidden, and Glidden spread satin. Oh, that's pretty. It goes on, it stays on, it doesn't flake off, it doesn't wash off. Spread satin's fantastic. It does all kinds of nice things for me.
If you've given up the best part of breakfast because of cholesterol and animal fat, try this.
From Morningstar Farms.
Good food with no cholesterol, no animal fat. The links and patties taste like sausage. The slices taste like ham. Morningstar Farms, textured vegetable protein. Good food with no cholesterol, no animal fat.
New from Morningstar Farms.
In your grocer's freezer.
The president of the National Education Association, James Harris, told a Senate hearing today that students see violence and vandalism as, quote, a fundamental way of life. The Senate committee has reported that schools each year spend as much on vandalism as they do on textbooks. More from Lee Thornton.
The committee report estimates that vandalism costs the nation $500 million a year. The most common ways of getting at a school when vandals can't get in is the spray paint can and the rock. In New York City alone, there were more than 200,000 windows broken last year at a replacement cost of $2 million. In Houston, $30,000 damage done by vandals at an elementary school in a middle-class suburb. In Los Angeles, $10,000 damage to a junior high school, the kind of vandalism that leaves even former vandals without an explanation.
I used to do them, yeah. I used to throw rocks at the school sometimes, at cars usually, because I didn't have nothing to do. And just for the fun, I used to like to see people run after me, so I can show them how fast I can run.
Because there is also violence, there are security guards, supplemented by electronic surveillance equipment and uniformed policemen. In New York City, that cost taxpayers $8.5 million last year, and there were still almost 5,000 incidents during school hours, a pattern repeated across the country.
Our schools are embroiled in an escalating crisis of violence and vandalism, which seriously threatens to destroy the ability of many of these institutions to educate our children.
The subcommittee's figures, based on half the nation's urban and rural school children, show that from 1970 to 1973, homicides increased 18%, rapes and attempted rapes up 40%, assaults on students up 85%. The National Education Association says 64,000 teachers were assaulted during the first half of the last school year. One of them was a junior high school teacher attacked by a 15-year-old girl wielding a broken bottle.
Teachers are assaulted, punched, pushed, kicked. Light bulbs are thrown at teachers. There's every variety of juvenile delinquency possible happens within this school as well as other schools within this district and in the city.
At today's hearing, the subcommittee was shown weapons collected during a 2-week period in a school district near Washington. These weapons were taken from students of all ages, and the weapons are used. In Houston, a 17-year-old senior was stabbed and killed with this knife by a 15-year-old during a lunch hour dispute. This is not just a big city phenomenon. It is happening in even the smallest towns, and it is happening without explanation. Lee Thornton, CBS News, New York.
Everything was described as back to normal today at Mansfield, Ohio's 2 hospitals after protesting anesthesiologists obtained malpractice insurance. For about a week, the protesting group handled only emergency cases. The spokesman said the group settled yesterday with a private company for less than $1 million worth of insurance. They'd wanted a minimum of $2 million on each case. Government figures out today indicate that the severe slump in the housing construction industry may have bottomed out in January. The figures show that in the 2 months since then, the number of new housing permits has stabilized at a slightly higher rate than in January. Also, the rate at which houses actually were started in March was down, but not by as much as in February. Averages were slightly higher on the New York Stock Exchange. The volume was 23 million shares. The average price per share gained 11 cents on the New York Exchange and 4 cents on the American.
Do you have anything for headaches?
Yes, take 2 of these.
Arthritis pain formula? I have a headache, not arthritis.
Doesn't matter. Arthritis pain formula is great for occasional headaches, too. Look at the label.
Also relieves headaches. Must be strong.
You bet it is. APF has more pain reliever in it than most headache tablets. Arthritis pain formula.
Hey, thanks. Arthritis pain formula is great for headaches.
Arthritis pain formula. Great for headaches, too.
So you see, Joe, I'm not sure I'd enjoy going fishing this morning.
Relax, Tom. Hemorrhoid symptoms? I had pain and itching once myself.
Yeah?
Preparation H sure worked for me.
Fortunately, in many cases, Preparation H gives prompt temporary relief from pain and itching of hemorrhoidal tissues. And tests by several leading doctors show Preparation H actually helps shrink swelling of hemorrhoidal tissues caused by inflammation. There's no other formula like doctor-tested Preparation H.
Eric Severide comments tonight on the unfolding events in Indochina and their relationship to the United States.
The Cambodian regime has now fallen and will be replaced by another Cambodian regime of communist persuasion and connections. The same result is generally expected in South Vietnam. Britons used to say they acquired their empire in a fit of absent-mindedness. America acquired its commitments in Southeast Asia in a fitful series of deliberate gambles, doubling our bets after each loss. An ancient system in roulette, but one that leaves the odds no better. Cambodia was never an ally of this country. We had no treaties with her. We did not start her civil war, but we greatly increased the level of its violence and destruction with the terrible weapons of modernity. Our responsibility in Vietnam is a more serious matter. The story there is not yet ended, but already the political air here is full of what might have beens and what might be in the future. Next year, for example, election year. South Vietnam, said the president today, would not be caught in its present tragedy if we had kept up our aid commitments to her. Reasonably small additional sums would have done it, he said. This opinion is not promiscuously shared in this capital. Too many congressmen remember too many assurances over the past 10 years of how just a bit more in men and money would light that light at the tunnel's end. Too many are currently aware that South Vietnamese troops abandoned around $750 million worth of American equipment without apparently even trying to destroy it before they fled. Mr. Ford also says he's absolutely convinced that with the requested $700 million, South Vietnam's military position could be stabilized. He does not say would be. He is positive about a maybe. Since Congress will not grant that much, the impression grows here that groundwork is being laid for a quarrelsome post-mortem as part of next year's presidential election. Vice President Rockefeller made that virtually explicit with his comments to reporters on his flight to the funeral of Chiang Kai-shek, another Asian anti-communist leader who was courageous enough to admit that his army simply collapsed of their own internal weaknesses. Rockefeller opined that the people next year will hold Congress responsible if large numbers of Americans are killed and captured before they get out of Vietnam. This is a most problematical maybe. Voters might instead hold the administration responsible for not getting the Americans out before this. If the polls mean anything, the overwhelming desire of Americans is to put Southeast Asia behind us. This is why the attitude in Congress is as negative as it is. It is also why a who lost Indochina issue may not grow to any serious proportions next year. Domestic passions over Southeast Asia were largely spent long ago. They will not be revived easily.
This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.
Go ahead. Get as close as you want. You don't have to worry about denture odor. You've got extra effervescent Polident. And Polident's got two kinds of cleaning action to help leave your dentures clean and odor-free. Polident's got one, chemical action to help clean away its stains, and two, physical action to help lift away film and odor-causing particles. So, whenever you want, get as close as you want. You've got Polident.
What's that, Jack? A second flavor of Digel. New lemon orange. Now there are two Digel flavors. At times, you know how tired you get from the taste of some antacids. Oh, do I? Not with Digel. In regular mint or new lemon orange. Both work like no plain antacid can. How's that? Digel is different. Relieves occasional heartburn, acid indigestion. Gets rid of gas. Gas? Gas pressure, fullness. Digel. In regular mint and new lemon orange. I'll try it.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this has been the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. For the latest news early, watch the CBS Morning News with Hughes Rudd. Two of comedy's top talents get together. They're Jackie Gleason and Nancy Walker, special guests of Tony Orlando and Dawn, tonight at 8, 7 Central Time, here on CBS.
WLAC-TV, Nashville.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Clark. A rash of violent incidents in Nashville today, including one murder, and a prison inmate jumps over the wall, and he lands right in front of the police firing range. Ron Kaiser's back, and he has details on the weather. Welcome back, partner.
Well, I brought the sun back with me when I came, Chris, but it's not going to stick around very long. Looks like some rain in the offing by tomorrow.
Okay, and Hope Hines has the sports.
Well, we've got that annual black and gold game for Vanderbilt on Saturday, and Fred Pancoast talks about his team this year in the upcoming game on Saturday.
Okay, details on these and other stories coming up.